You're listening to In Clear Focus, fresh perspectives on the business of advertising, produced weekly by Bigeye. Hello, I'm your host, Adrian Tennant, VP of Insights at Bigeye, an audience-focused, creative-driven, full-service advertising agency. We're based in Orlando, Florida, but serve clients across the United States and beyond. Thank you for joining us. There's a history of well-known artists and designers applying their skills to the branding of products and services that fall outside of their usual creative orbit. For example, surrealist artist Salvador Dalí helped a small Spanish confectionery brand in the late 1950s achieve global success. Dalí's logo for Chupa Chups lollipops remains largely unchanged today. English musician and record producer Brian Eno, best known for his pioneering work in ambient music, was commissioned by Microsoft to develop the 6-second startup sound of the Windows 95 operating system. And another fellow Brit, typographer and art director Neville Brody, is probably best known for his work on The Face magazine, which strongly influenced fashion and music visuals during the 1980s. Brody was commissioned by Macromedia in the late 90s, prior to the company's acquisition by Adobe, to create the identities of web design software, including Flash and Shockwave. But how challenging is it as a designer to be responsible for the branding of products intended to serve other designers? To find out, we're joined today by Luis González Jr., an award-winning designer and art director. He is currently the senior brand designer at InVision app, the product design platform powering the world's best user experiences. Over the past year and a half, Luis has been working on redefining the brand from the ground up. Previously, Luis was part of the creative team at Squarespace in New York City. For over 5 years, he worked on all aspects of the brand, including brand art direction, visual campaigns, web designs, and films and commercials. If you've seen the brand, then you've seen his work. Before all of this, Luis cut his teeth in advertising and design in both Tampa, Florida, and New York City. Luis is currently embarking on his newest journey into fatherhood. Born in California, raised in Puerto Rico, Luis attended Flagler College in St. Augustine, Florida, where he graduated with a BA in graphic design. After 7 years living in Brooklyn, Luis now calls St. Petersburg, Florida home, with his wife Erica, their son Leo, and dog Maple. Welcome to In Clear Focus, Luis.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Luis, as I mentioned in the introduction, you're currently at InVision. Before we discuss your role there, could you explain what InVision is?
Yeah. So InVision it's basically the end-to-end product design platform powering some of today's most powerful and influential companies globally. Some of our customers are, the Fortune 100 companies. So some of your favorite apps, your favorite brands, banks, travel companies, you name it. We really focus on every step of the way for the product design flow. And also we're really big into the collaboration sphere within some of these companies. We're really trying to reinvent how teams work together from ideation through to design and prototyping, feedback, speaking with the executives, speaking with stakeholders, and really trying to break down those walls between these teams. You see companies around the world, Slack, for example, they no longer work in separate teams or departments. We have squads, and these are groups of people one's an engineer, one's a designer, one's a product manager. So they're all kind of working together. So we really wanted to create a workflow that works really well for people from beginning to end, no matter what their role is.
So it supports agile development practices.
Yeah. And it's trying to take out any hiccups or any pain points that people feel. And really, since I've been here, that's the goal, to kind of like refine it, reinvent it, rework it all to make it a smoother process between person to person, team to team, project to project.
So at InVision, you are senior brand designer. What does your role entail?
Yeah, so my role is basically reinventing the brand, redefining the brand. So that's kind of what I've been doing at InVision so far. When I first came here, the biggest issue that we had was we didn't have photography that we owned or that was bespoke to Envision. And that was one of the issues too with being remote is you don't have that capability of just getting into the studio and shooting the photos. So the biggest thing was, who are we? What do we look like? How do we show our products? How do the products look? How can we talk about them in not such a technical SaaS way? So that was the big one. Art directing it, coming up with the ideas, hiring the photographers and retouchers and the production crew that I've worked with in the past, and really shooting this whole thing in like 4 days, getting like 100 photos. Hopefully soon enough, we'll be releasing a lot of this stuff to the world. Another project being like a brand refresh, I guess you could say, of Envision, and then also working on like Envision.com. So from all tent poles or all touch points within the brand, how do we look? How do we feel? How do we have consistency? How is it a person, when someone sees us in an email, they should get the same idea of the brand as when they see us online, or if they get served an ad, or if they see one of our videos.
Even prior to COVID-19, is InVision a completely virtual company then in terms of the team structure?
Yeah, that was definitely one of the like drawing points to me to Envision, was the opportunity to work and live remotely. I'd spoken to many people who literally don't have homes. They just live in a different country or different state every month. They just travel around and they get to set up their home office wherever that is. So yeah, 100% virtual. The CEO kind of thought it was a great idea way back in the day before anyone even considered that. I think it was in 2012. He saw that for a startup that he was competing with these bigger companies, the Googles in New York at that time, Foursquare or Squarespace, all these companies kind of fighting for the talent pool. And he was like, why do I need to keep everyone in New York? Why don't I just open it up to people wherever they live and tap into that pool of creative talent? The beauty of technology today, you have Slack, you have everything you need right then and there, that it makes it seamless.
As more people have been working from home over the last couple of months, have you seen either increased interest in or engagement with InVision's platform?
Yeah, actually, yes. A lot of people think of Envision as this one product, that it's just prototyping or user testing. And we actually have other products that are part of this one workflow system. We've noticed a lot of people that have gone to this post-COVID remote world that they're using one of our products, Freehand, which is this like giant whiteboard type of product where you can have the whole company jump in there and you're writing out ideas, you're scribbling, you're doing post-it notes all over the board. And really that's probably one of the products that I use most these days. It's great for me to like put images in there or lay out wireframes, write a lot of notes. It's collaborative when I'm working with other people. And we're kind of seeing that happen and play out right now with COVID happening.
Luis, immediately prior to your current role at InVision, you were senior brand designer at Squarespace in New York. Now, the company grew really fast during the 5 years that you were there. What was it like being part of that growth trajectory?
It was the Wild West at that time. It was a total adrenaline rush. When I decided to leave agency life and join in-house, at first I was really hesitant. In school, you don't really talk about in-house, or the idea of in-house seemed like almost like a dead end. Like you go here and you're only working on this one brand and that's it. But at that time, Squarespace just seemed like a really interesting opportunity. I had been job searching at the time. I was working at an agency in New York. I wasn't feeling satisfied. And I felt, hey, I moved to New York City. I want to work on like fun things. I want to like, really just get my hands dirty in these projects. And I didn't feel like I was getting that. So I rebuilt my site after a few failed interviews, pushed it live on Squarespace. And literally the next day they had a job posting. And I thought, this has to be a sign. So I put my resume together, sent it in, and I got the job. And at that time, there was just the chief creative officer, a producer, another designer, and myself. So a super small team. We knew what we wanted to be, and we knew that we were all there to win. So it was this mentality of either get on board or step aside. It was so all hands on deck that my first day I walk in and the chief creative officer, this guy who is an industry legend, he's cut his teeth working at some of the biggest agencies in the world, is heads down, jamming out to music, working on banner ads for the Super Bowl campaign that they just finished shooting, that they needed to send to the production company to be aired that weekend for Super Bowl. It was just crazy. No project was below anyone. Everyone threw down. Everyone was eager to just work on whatever it was to benefit the brand. And we knew that we had competition. We were, in our early stages of the company, but we knew we had this goal in mind. And that excitement made everyone really passionate about what they were working on.
During your time at Squarespace, which projects were the most fun to work on?
I feel very fortunate and lucky to have had my time at Squarespace, where I worked on any number of things day to day. It all changed all the time. A few that come to mind would be the first campaign that I worked on. It was so scrappy. We had the producer's friend who's a photographer. We're shooting all this stuff in an empty office space. We have his friend who's a retoucher, retouching all this stuff. And from all this scrappiness, we created a national campaign, and it was my first opportunity doing something that I got to step outside and see immediately. As soon as I walked out of the office doors, I would see the taxi cabs driving by, and I see the billboard that I worked on in there, or riding the subway home. I see all the subway ads that I literally sent to print 2 weeks ago up there. And it was just so exciting. And I'll never forget that first campaign. And then a few others that come to mind would be we wanted to do a product demo video, kind of showing the product. And I had pitched the idea of a wedding one, and the CEO liked the idea. And at the time, my wife and I were getting ready to get married. And my boss, the chief creative officer, pulled me into a meeting, and he was kind of like, "Hey man, so we're going to go with a wedding video idea. And since we're going with, real customers, you're getting married. So you kind of have to be in it." So there's no real choice. I was working on this commercial, on this whole campaign, and then I was also in it with my wife. But we had a blast, and it ended up playing during New Year's Eve. I think it's like Ryan Seacrest's live New Year's Eve event, and they played it there. And I remember we're like in the city going to a party for New Year's and just getting blown up on social media. People being like, "Did I just see you on TV? What the hell is happening?" One of the last ones that I worked on was with Keanu Reeves, who was an amazing guy, super humble, super kind. Getting to meet him, shoot this crazy idea of him like standing up on his motorcycle, riding through the desert at 100 miles per hour. And then afterwards, the following week, going into studio space and photographing his motorcycles and literally sitting next to him, showing him how to make a Squarespace website and put his logo in and, "Oh, I want this image," or "I want that," or "What about this typeface?" It was just a wild ride.
Let's take a short break. We'll be right back after this message.
I'm Lauren Four, and I'm on the operations team at Bigeye. Every week, In Clear Focus addresses topics that impact our work as agency professionals and reflects the way that Bigeye puts audiences first. For every engagement, we develop a deep understanding of our clients' prospects and customers. This data is distilled into actionable insights that inspire creative brand building and persuasive activation campaigns, and guide strategic, cost-efficient media placements that really connect with our clients' audiences. If you'd like to know more about how to put Bigeye's audience-focused insights to work for your brand, please contact us. Email info@bigeyeagency.com. Bigeye, reaching the right people in the right place at the right time.
Welcome back. We're talking to Luis González Jr. about brand design and creative collaboration. Luis, you started your professional career working for agencies in the Tampa Bay area. Looking back, what, if anything, did you learn from those experiences that influenced the way you approach your work today?
Some of the lessons that I learned in my time working in Tampa at some of the agencies are that you got to have humility and you got to be gracious with everyone, because everyone knows everyone. It's a close-knit community. We're all working to make awesome work. So it's like this friendly competition, and you work with someone here and then you go to another agency and then they come with you too. And we're all in it together at the end of the day. So it was this fun camaraderie and fun group of people. And
Let's talk about your creative process. Do you prefer to generate a lot of ideas and then edit them down to the best candidates? Or do you start from, say, a smaller number and then iterate on those?
Yeah, I feel like I would do the former when I first started out. You kind of cast a wide net, and that's what you're taught in school. Like if we're doing a rebrand project, right? You have to do 100 logos before you actually find the right one. And we would have teachers kind of come by and look at your notebook, and you would have to show that you did 100 or 200 logo marks. And then you would kind of deviate from there and choose the right one and refine it. But over the years, I've kind of moved my way towards working on a smaller number of ideas and then really iterating on them and really fleshing them out, and typically coming to a meeting with like 4 to 5 ideas that are just really blown out versus coming to the table with a ton that need to be refined.
Staying with creative process, what are your surefire or go-to sources of inspiration?
I think for me, a lot of it is culturally staying aware of what's happening. Yeah, I like to look at what other agencies are doing. I'll go on Adweek or Ad Age. I'll follow what companies or design brands are doing, what design studios are doing all the time. But I also like seeing what's happening culturally, fashion, movies, things in the news. If I'm looking for inspiration and images, my buddy that I used to work with, he created this web app called Save It. That's SAVEE.IT. And it's this really awesome way to create mood boards. You can install the Chrome plugin, grab whatever you want. It saves it to your page, and then you can just customize your mood boards as you see fit. I'll just spend hours on there just finding stuff that I like and love and saving it.
Luis, do you prefer using physical notebooks and markers to capture ideas and sketches, or do you have a digital process that works for you?
I'm kind of a hybrid. I do a little bit of both. I always have a sketchbook with me. My old design manager taught me about using texture when I'm drawing. So I'll have a sketchbook and I'm working with just like scale and the texture of these shapes and things. So, I'll have like a spread of just these rough drawings that look like chicken scratch to everyone. But to me, I look at it and I'm like, this is the spread. This is what these billboards are going to look like. And this scribble over here is the copy, and this right here is the photo, and it all makes sense to me. And then I use the app Simple Note religiously. Like I am actually on it right now. Anything that I have, any thought that I have, I put on there. Any ideas that I have, I like to take the brief or whatever the ask is. I sit down, write my ideas, any thoughts, questions, a lot of rhetorical questions, things that kind of help me break apart the ask and think about it, stew on it, and then put it back together to come up with an idea.
Do you have any other creative interests or personal projects that you're working on right now?
Yeah. The one personal project that I've been working on every day actually is these posters for my son. You can check it out on my site, luisgonzalez.design. They're called Posters for Leo. Leo's my son. And I had the idea when he was born. I was kind of sitting there in the hospital looking down at him. But at that one moment, everything kind of stopped. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, you are the most important person in my life. And I got this like spark of excitement and I wanted to do something for him. And it also got me excited to do something with design as well. So I started the idea of, all right, I'm going to make a poster each day of his first year of life. And each poster is going to have like a little caption on there of what happened. And then the design kind of emulates that. It might be a little bit more abstract or a little bit more literal. Yeah, I have a sketchbook that I carry around with me. And each day I write down like, the date number, and then I'll write down quickly what happened. And it could be something as simple as like, you blew me a kiss today, or you let our dog lick your hand, or you had a diaper blowout in the car, just to capture these little snippets of the day for his first entire year of life. And then at the end of the year, kind of compile it all and make it into a book and then give that to him for his first birthday.
I think that's a lovely idea. Now, you moved from Brooklyn, New York, back to the Tampa Bay area. Do you miss anything about life in New York?
Yes. And this is something that my wife and I talk about every day. We kind of, we'll be making breakfast or we're just walking the dog, and there's little things that come up and we're like, man, you know what? I miss this or that. We miss our old neighborhood. We lived in Cobble Hill, which is just south of Brooklyn Heights, right on the water near the Brooklyn Bridge. And it was just beautiful there to be out on a fall day and go get coffee, go get breakfast. We miss the diversity of people, also like the diversity of food and things that you can do. It felt like any day of the week, I would check my email and it's like, oh my God, this comedian's performing down the street. Why don't we go? Or this band is playing, or this gallery exhibition is opening up, and everything was just there at your fingertips at all time of the day. That's where I drew a lot of inspiration living in New York. You're right at the epicenter of design and innovation, fashion. Everything's happening right there that you just like tap into it.
Okay. So what do you like most about living in St. Petersburg?
The pace of life has been amazing, and the proximity to the beaches have been, life changing. We actually just went this morning before anything got too crowded. We took our son, and it's just this change of life. You kind of go from 200 miles per hour, working late every night and working on the weekends, and just this fast paced go, hustle and bustle life, to much slower, more intentional. And we get to enjoy our son more, and we're closer to family. Yeah. So we love like the community that St. Pete has and all its potential.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, we had brand strategist Darius Lana from Pearson on the podcast. He talked about some of the challenges that people of color face when considering a career in advertising. Luis, as a Hispanic man, have you ever experienced discrimination or been in situations that have made you feel uncomfortable because of your race or ethnicity?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I can't say I ever felt it in the workplace, and that's something that I'm definitely grateful for. But I'm also aware that is something that happens all the time. And I'm fortunate because some of the companies that I worked at, Squarespace, for example, they did a tremendous job at D&I, so diversity, equity, and inclusion. Like, how can we bring everyone to the table? How can we show representation? How can we make people feel welcomed without it being this like forced idea of like, okay, we have to do this or that? Like, how can everyone have a seat at the table, speak their mind, be included? And it was truly amazing to experience it from the early days to what it's become now. And InVision is doing the same thing. You have such an amazing group of people all coming together from all different walks of life. And it's truly amazing. It's something great to witness.
Well, the 135-year-old arts and crafts manufacturer Crayola has announced that it's releasing new packs of crayons next month called Colors of the World, designed to represent global skin tones. Crayola's CEO said, quote, "We want the new Colors of the World crayons to advance inclusion within creativity and impact how kids express themselves," end quote. Each pack includes a color reference, and each crayon label lists the color name in English, Spanish, and French. Luis, what are your thoughts about Crayola's strategy?
I think this is awesome. I actually remember being a kid and loving art and drawing and having like a pack of crayons and not really being able to like color in who I was, or even having friends color in who they were. You kind of just had like the generic colors. So you would have to resort to like peach and then shading in with like the lighter brown and getting like who you are or whatever it was. So it's really an awesome thing that they're doing to kind of bring this idea to the table and kind of be more inclusive in the color palettes that they're providing. I think it's great. And I think it's awesome to start young. Like, kids are the ones that are playing with Crayola so young. So it's great to make them feel included and not feel like an outsider. As something as simple as like a color that kind of matches your skin tone is just an awesome thing for them to do.
Finally, Luis, if listeners would like to see your work, where can they find you?
Yeah, you could find me at luisgonzalez.design. You could see all my present, past work, my poster series for my son. You could reach out there if you want to collaborate or you have cool ideas and you want to work together. Always down to talk to people. And you can also find me on Instagram. It's Luis Mark Gonzalez. Yeah, if it's all black and white, then you found the right account.
And of course, we'll include a link to that on our website too. Luis, thank you very much for being our guest on In Clear Focus.
Thank you. It was an awesome experience. I appreciate it.
My thanks to our guest this week, Luis Mark Gonzalez Jr., Senior Brand Designer at InVision. You can find our show notes with links to resources on the In Clear Focus page at bigeyeagency.com under Insights. Just click on the button marked Podcast. To ensure you don't miss an episode, please consider subscribing to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast player. And if you have an Amazon Echo device, you can use the In Clear Focus skill to add the podcast to your flash briefing. Thank you for listening to In Clear Focus, produced by Bigeye. I've been your host, Adrian Tennant. Until next week, stay safe, goodbye.